Welcome everyone to Why Limit Podcast episode number 1. And yes, I am doing a podcast now too. What a shocker. Anyway, with that being said, I want to present you my first guest. He's a very prolific person with a very diverse background and a very interesting life path. He's an accredited journalist, veteran, Qigong instructor, awarded doctoral degree in interfaith dialogue and diplomacy, graduate from the Institute of Advanced Psychological Studies, California. His writings have been published by Oxford University Philosophical Society. His newest book, Conflict of Identity, From the Slave Trade to Present Day, I think is a must-read, especially in the light of current events. He has traveled the world and was kind enough to share with me some of his time and knowledge. With that being said, please welcome Dr. Glenville Ashby. And I also want to thank you all for your support in advance. Thank you and enjoy. All right. So I want to start by saying thank you for accepting my proposal.
Well, thank you.
And meeting me in the city. And we've been meaning to do this for a while.
Yeah.
And I've been meaning to start this kind of interview podcast, whatever you want to call it, even longer before that.
Okay.
So I'm very honored and thankful for you being the first guest. My impression is that your mission or your journey is more focused on healing a human soul.
Yes, I think
your own and others.
Yes,
from
I
your
believe
experience.
that we have to tune inward. We can't change the exterior unless we change who we are, our scars, heal our scars. We are all scarred in some way, in some form or fashion.
Very true.
And my mission has always been that. Again, no one is perfect. I'm not perfect, but I am endeavoring to get to the point where I can live a fruitful life without guilt, without fear, without anxiety, but live a grateful life. And that's a process. It takes time. It takes a lot of reflection, acceptance, and admission of who you are and things that you might have done that you shouldn't have done, and you have to own up to you and to your actions. It's about self-responsibility.
How did you come to that? Or did life bring you here, on its own? Did you just, let it happen, or did you come to a conclusion, or is it an epiphany that you have to do this? Or?
No, I'll say in my 20s or even in my teens, I started, a spiritual journey after my mom died. I was 16 years old, and that was a traumatic experience.
Of course.
And I started to pursue spirituality. I needed to find out exactly what lies ahead, not only in this life, but in the hereafter. Here's my mom. My mother was always a woman of faith, very spiritual. And I felt that in my myopic view, in my limited understanding of life, I felt that she was cheated, that God did something that was, at the time, cruel.
Right, unrighteous.
So as a result, I started this journey. So in my late teens, I explored many different religious traditions, experientially, not only from a theoretical understanding. I dive, into studies, delving, researching, from Hinduism to Buddhism to yoga, to other mystical organizations like the Rosicrucian Order, Astara. And I went on and on and on. But I still felt unfulfilled. I had a lot of knowledge. So I would say, to your question, I would say that eventually, as the journey continues and as you go along your path, you realize that there's something bigger, that you have to heal the wounds within, that we are all heading towards, or should be heading towards, self-actualization. What that self-actualization is, that's another discourse. But it takes time. It's not an epiphany. it's a journey, a slow journey. It takes time, and eventually questions are formulated and answers do come.
But see, also, like you said earlier, not a lot of people ask those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people don't want or don't even have the idea of digging, deep into their conscious and their life and reasoning and questioning, why. And you're one of those people that definitely does that and goes to a certain great extent to to find out more. And you did by going to Benin, correct?
Well, that's late in life.
Right.
But prior to that, I traveled to Switzerland to study, Celtic Reiki and spirituality. And then I went to the Vatican and Rome and the Vatican.
How was that experience?
I stayed twice, 2 occasions.
Wow. How was that experience?
It was eye-opening.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went, I did a course on bioethics there. And I lived in a nunnery. And it was for the first time I had lived alone before, but I lived in a cell, really a cell, very bare, with only a crucifix on the wall, no radio, no television. I was cut off from everything. And it was a time to really reflect, a lot of introspection, but it was a very important time because you begin to understand the truth behind the dictum, the saying, silence is golden. And what is that golden? How do you define golden? And at that point I realized that in quietude, in tranquility, you have access to a part of you, a reservoir of information that you might not have known. But the silence gives you that opportunity to listen within. Most of us, we react to stimuli. We arise in the morning, the television is on, the radio is on, the music
a quick result.
And we don't have an opportunity to process what we are thinking.
Study
so
ourselves.
every question can be answered, and the answers are within us. The kingdom of God is within, as they say.
Right.
Right. So that's why in therapy or in hypnotherapy, you gain access, or you facilitate access to someone's unconscious self, where all the answers, the strength, the resourcefulness reside.
I forgot who said that, but somebody said that if you can conquer yourself, you can conquer the world. Basically,
exactly
understanding
the same
yourself.
thing, and man know thyself.
Right.
And knowing yourself is more than simply saying I am American, I'm from Trinidad, I'm from Moldova. Yeah. It's a deeper quest. It's a deeper understanding of your very essence.
What do you think? Well, speaking of which, like you mentioned, being from Moldova, being American, from Trinidad. Sometimes, I feel like I don't belong to one place, and as you as well, or do you? What do you think about what I'm trying to say? What do you think about reincarnation?
Oh.
Previous lives, previous experiences. Because some people are born predisposed to certain things. They're almost like they have, knowledge from previous experiences, previous lives. Somebody writes music easily.
Right.
Somebody speaks well. Somebody, invents a certain thing at an early age.
Well, I of course, I hold that reincarnation is very real. It's part of a natural law. Everything is cyclical. Everything recycles. I like to think that reincarnation will explain a lot of the injustices that we have in our society. And it also allows for parity eventually. That's the ultimate parity. So that we, during many incarnations, will experience being black, being Indian, being poor, being rich. And all those experiences are registered by the soul. So I feel, that's the ultimate equalizer. It allows for parity, it allows for justice. It then explains so many different things. Why is someone born Why is someone born blind? Why is someone born in a country where there's no hope? I mean, with a country of major destitution.
Right.
I don't think something happens to chance. Life is not haphazard. There's structure and there's order. You wake in the morning, and of course there's a sun there, and the rise and the fall. The earth rotates, etc. So there's order. There's some degree of structure, and even in chaos there's structure, because everything eventually, is equalized, and there is what they call homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
So reincarnation, yes, I do agree with that. I think that there is evidence to that effect that supports it. There are some books written about major case studies in reincarnation. I can't recall those books right now, but for listeners, they can do some research in that area.
Please share with me those books with me later.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I can read up on it.
Yes.
Because I read on some examples from other books. And they were talking about briefly. They were talking about some, but obviously you can't check that. But even in the Bible, right?
There's reference. Although most Christians don't believe, if you uphold the Bible, most Christians don't believe in reincarnation. But there is some indication that it was mentioned in the Bible on several occasions, not literally, but it was inferred that the people at the time believed in it. I think there's a story where the disciples or the apostles, probably the disciples, asked Jesus, "Why is this man blind? Was it the sins of his father? Was he born that way?" I can't remember the story exactly, but it indicates that they believe that he did something in his past.
For a reason. Yeah.
For a reason.
He needs to go through this experience to learn the lesson.
Yes, and then there's another indication, there's another reference of John the Baptist being Elijah come back. I mean, you can research that in the Bible also. Oh, he is Elijah come back.
Come back.
He
wow.
is,
Okay.
So those two references for listeners, they can do some research on that.
So you read the Bible, you read the Quran, did
Yes.
you? You read the Torah?
The Gita.
Okay.
The Gita.
And you definitely have to see like similarities within all of them. Like there was almost the same kind of philosophy, but
well, especially I would say especially with the Quran and the Old Testament.
Right.
The Quran mentions Mother Mary more than it mentions. It mentions multiple times Mary. It raises Mother Mary to an august reverential position. So there's similarity. It mentions Jesus many times, and all the prophets.
Mm-hmm.
Job, Elijah, Elias, Joseph, just in different names.
Just different names, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
And the stories are very similar.
Yeah. And that's what sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, sure.
When I have conversations with my wife, I explain to her that like our differences are only indicating that our similarities,
Well, yeah, and rightly so. If there is a God in the way, an anthropomorphic God, as Christians or Orthodox religion or religionists like to describe that power as a superhuman, this super ego, this God of immense capabilities, infinite capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he would have created us like automatons or robots where we all think alike. And that's why it's very dangerous to force your views on your religious beliefs on others.
Yeah.
Because life affords us that diversity. That's the beauty of life, that we have divergent views. And of course, we can come together and there's commonality in our beliefs. But, my God, let us interpret, let us redefine our own truths. That's the only way we can grow as a people, and not sheepishly follow a path dictated by someone else.
I couldn't agree more. I wish politics would operate based on that truth, but it happens,
of course,
differently, and maybe it's supposed to be this way, like we said,
Well,
it is.
That's the whole question of what is the world, and will we ever have equality?
Right.
Will we ever have peace on earth?
Because it's been like this
From
earth
from day one.
yeah, yeah.
From day one.
So nothing changed.
So
Nothing
we
changed.
do our best. But I feel that as you get older, you get wiser. And eventually you'll realize that the only person you can change is really change you, and others can see that change, that transformation in you, and come to you for counsel and guidance. But you can't force your system of belief on another person. We are idealists, and we like to think that we can change the world, but let's look at
It's also the ego as well.
Exactly. A lot of narcissism is going on here. Like a commune, for example. Usually, it's a group of people who are very idealists, and they move away from what they deem a rotten society, an unjust society, and they set up their own system. And what usually happens after a period of time? There's still hierarchy, because there has to be a leader or someone that you appoint as leader. And then you'll have individuals with more talent than others, and they will be placed in a hierarchical position or position of power, whether you are farming or whatever. So again, you mirror the hierarchical system and the system of abuse that you rejected, and you recreate it in a different form and different fashion. That's why most communes usually collapse.
And we're so eager to hold on to what we have, like
most communes usually collapse. So again, you change yourself. It takes a lot of time, but you delve inward and you change yourself, and things follow. Seek ye first the kingdom that is within, and everything else will follow.
It's like it goes back to the question, why am I here?
Right, and that's a key. That's an important question. Why am I here? I don't think most of us are here to ride on the train every single day of our lives.
Exactly. I've been saying that all the time.
Excuse me. We are not here to ride on the train, and at 64, we get a pension, and then we end up dying. The major part of our life is over. And then the cycle continues, and your sons and daughters do the same thing, and you go over and over and over. I think there's something deeper to our existence, and we have to find that. We all have different paths and different journeys and different gifts. We all have gifts and we all have talents. We should read Helen Keller, Light in My Darkness, and that's a powerful, powerful book. So it shows that even with handicaps, with the most major of handicaps, one can persevere and surmount or every challenge that exists. And Helen Keller is an example of that. So I think our purpose here is to find ourselves, to connect. I think filial piety is very important. I think communalism is important, meaning that responsibility to yourself, to your family, to your community. Those things are very important. And of course, our responsibility is to enhance the natural gifts that we are given. All right, enhance, promote, and use that gift to help others. I think that's key. And you'll find consolation, you'll find joy, and then you'll find peace and contentment. Not happiness, but contentment. Because happiness is fleeting.
I'm happy to hear someone else thinking what I've been thinking for so many years, and meeting somebody, with even more experience than I, probably will ever have. But saying the truth with that that resonates, with mine. So I'm a little bit in awe, and I'm just listening.
Okay.
That's it.
Sure.
Do you want to talk about the experience in Benin, or you want to talk before that about how it led to that?
Well, what led to Benin? I would say, race is an issue that has bedeviled the world. Of course, we have the situation now in the U.S., but this has always existed in America. At one time, it was worse. I mean, it was dire. And not only in America, but in England, in Europe, in China. I wrote an article, and I know I have addressed these issues that we are talking about now. I addressed those issues a long time.
In your articles?
In my articles that I've written. There's one article I wrote about racism against blacks in India, in China, in Brazil, and it goes country to country to country to country with documented evidence and real life cases, of course. And there is also color bias and color prejudice, or colorism, intra-group, meaning that amongst Indians.
Yep.
So there's something about black. All right, so the dark Indians have had a problem. I can attest to that. Living in Trinidad, where we have 30% Indians, they speak of racism, call it caste, whatever we might be, but it's
one other.
It centers on race, on color, more or less, for the most part. So race is something that I grew up very much aware of it in Trinidad, but it wasn't a major problem.
Yes.
And I guess it's your parental upbringing, also your level of your self-assurance, how you're raised as a child. I was the recipient or a victim of racism in Trinidad, but I never allowed it for some reason. And I reflected on this and I said, why didn't I respond? But when I came to America, I realized that there's something about American society that made me self-conscious. I became aware of it even more.
Different perspective, yeah. It's like a magnifying glass, maybe.
Yeah, for some reason.
Before, I also want to say that until recently, there's also, how should I say? I don't know if it's from where I come from, although over there we also have racism. In
Excuse me.
Not based on color, or sometimes based on color. Well, no, based on color too. But we have less black people over there. Nationalism, I guess. It's another way.
It's prejudice.
Prejudice, yes. Yeah. I guess I agree with. It comes with your upbringing, the way you were raised, how to to see the world. Because when I came here, I just thought, racism is just a thing of the past.
No.
Until recently, because I saw this movie 13, a documentary on Netflix. I don't know if.
Okay.
And then I read your book as well, and then I spoke with my wife as well. More, as you know, she's Dominican. She's darker skin. She's black. And she says about her experience. I had experienced this as well, but not based on color, but based on my appearance, because of the beard, because of the accent or something. Possibly, I've been. Yeah. But again, like you said, I didn't let it, stick to my personality.
Yeah.
It's just what doesn't break us, makes us stronger.
Right, of course.
But recently, it opened up my eyes, and I understood that. There's actually people that I always thought that racist people are just stupid people, or not very ignorant people,
right? Or educated, or
uneducated.
But that's not the case.
It's more than that. It's more than that.
Yes.
I don't know, people deliberately and they keep. I don't know where I'm going with this.
No. Are you saying it's like institutional?
It's institutional. Yes, and there are people that are, to this day, in 2020, think that a person can be less of a person based on the skin color. It just doesn't you know
It befuddles you.
the equation, the formula doesn't work with me. Like I don't understand how is that possible.
Right. Well, you know,
Yeah.
it's conditioning. You know, we are highly suggestible creatures, and over a period of time, these suggestions become real, very tangible in blocks of ideas in our subconscious self, and then it manifests. Carl Jung calls it an archetype. Over a period of time, these beliefs take a life of their own, take on their own texture, and they actually impact how we think and how we believe. It's like in a religion, it becomes something that we believe and we hold on to those values and those beliefs. So it becomes very difficult to actually remove them. So institutionalized racism has to be addressed, and it's going to take, you know, it took generations for us to actually experience what we're experiencing today, and it will not be wiped out, eviscerated, and a clean slate in 2 days or a month or a year. It'll take generations. But do I think racism will ever die? Never.
No,
This is
I totally agree with you. It's a part of the human nature.
Very possibly.
Yeah.
Very possibly.
I
I mean,
think-
socialization can help. It can temper it, but deep within, because it comes also with class issues.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
only race,
It's very correlated.
Yeah, so it's very much correlated.
Yeah.
And then, you know, sometimes you're rejected based on class, and people misconstrue it and think it's race, but it's class.
It's class, yeah.
So there are a lot of variables. It's very nuanced also.
And it's actually weaponized. This conflict is used for politicians'
within-
benefit.
And amongst blacks, there's racism, there's colorism. You go to Haiti, it's a hierarchy of colors. So you have black, you have mulatto, you have octoroon, you have all these different classifications of race. When I was a young man, as a boy, I heard people say, "Oh, make sure you put some milk in your coffee when you're looking for a young lady. Put some milk in your coffee."
Right, so you mix it up.
Yeah. In other words, you know, you don't want black coffee.
Yeah.
So, frankly, we have to really look within, and we can, you know, topple statues and, you know, and change names of streets, but at the end of the day, we have to look within.
Yeah.
This is deeper than,
And
you know.
I thought, you know, in a light of recent events, you know, the protests and when it just started, when the looting and everything, I was thinking, it's just another, you know, reason for politicians to do to work with their agenda, to do so.
Well,
There's definitely something behiing this.
Well, of course, this is much bigger than.
But I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but,
no, sorry.
I think, and I thought it was like nothing's going to change. But when I see, you know, the amount of people gathering together and peaceful, let's put aside to the you know the looting and all the madness, but the peaceful protests, people getting together, people supporting each other for a greater cause, it's actually a good thing. And I think that police brutality, that's one small aspect of it, or one that can be changed,
Right.
or even a little bit. If it can be changed, it's a great thing. It's a great
of
cause.
course, yes,
and I think
yes.
you know, let it be, because first I wasn't really sure. I had to think about it more.
I agree. I agree.
I actually was thinking about, like, because I told you, like, military or police, you know, going into police. But I totally agree that there's a lot of them are incapable, or a lot of them are unprepared to deal with you know, situations. And I have my wife's aunt is actually a sergeant.
Okay.
She would tell me, you know, the stories of cops that are not really, I don't know, they're not really prepared for this job.
Well, yeah. People. Again, you enter into the service for many reasons. You can retire early. You know, you have a good pension. I mean, that's not the reason for being a cop. That should not be the reason.
Yeah.
You know, it should be something much deeper than that. You know, serving the community. You know, but then you have to look at the individuals to become cops, who want to become cops. And then psychological testing is very important.
Exactly.
Very, very important.
Yep.
You know,
Like they need to they need to filter to get the best out of
best,
Yes.
the very best with high ideals.
Make it a more prestigious job.
So you need funding. You don't need defunding.
Exactly.
You
I
need
totally
funding,
agree with that.
With more training, better training.
I totally agree with that.
But you know, the protesting is always good. There will be change. You can feel it, and there will be change.
Yeah.
Will it be ideal? No. But again, everything we do has to be measured, balanced.
Yeah.
You can't tip the scale and swing the pendulum to the other extreme, as we have now in Seattle, where you have, 6-block radius that is designated autonomous zone, capital autonomous zone in Seattle.
Very weird.
Yeah.
Very weird.
So they have their own rules and regulations now in Seattle.
I didn't hear about that.
So that's something to do some research on. It's called
When did that happen? Just now?
over the last 5-4 days. You know, so that's
there's federal law, there's state law, and then there's this like city law, and then there's them.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a group of people. I mean, they were protesters, and it's like Occupy Wall Street. Were you around that time?
Yeah.
Right. So it's similar to that.
But nothing really happened.
Right,
out
but
of
this
the
one
war.
is even much more interesting because they've actually taken over blocks, 6 blocks. So within that 6-block radius, you have businesses and where people live also. How the city will deal with it, that's another matter. I don't know how they're going to deal with it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do they have their own police?
Well, they were calling for volunteers and, to man.
Interesting. I didn't hear about it.
Yeah. That's swinging to the other extreme.
Yes, I totally agree that any extreme is an extreme.
Yeah, so we have to be measured, and we also have to be mindful of politicians who are using this march or the protest or the platform to advance their own agenda.
Right.
They were in office for decades, and they didn't do anything. They haven't done anything.
So hypocrite.
Yeah. So true representation has to come from the people.
Yeah.
Those people who have, who are giving themselves to this struggle. They have eloquent people with ideas. These are the individuals who should be at the forefront of any kind of change. And other politicians, the career politicians, who have been around for decades, and who are now, jumping on this matter.
Or families of politicians, the generations.
Yeah. But it comes down again to the question of race. Are we going to ever get over? And then you mentioned, nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
Are we doomed because of who we are to always live a life of inequality? And I say unabashedly yes. Because the best among us came. The sages, the rishis, the avatars, the mahatmas, they came, they were reviled, they were killed, the best among us. Yeah. And from day one, this has been going on.
It's just a circle of life.
So this is just one dimension of many existences, of many dimensions. And this is what it is. It's a school of hard knocks. It's a rough school.
It's an experience.
The rough school that we need to, we have to experience this.
Back to the question, why are we here and what is this, world? I feel like it's connected to numerology. I feel like this planet Earth is only a step, a level that you have to go through in order for your soul or being to experience or have some different cycles, experiences in order to get to the next level. Right. It's like a game.
Yeah, definitely. But I think we have to embrace these challenges and run from them. And we also always have to push forward. Learning is so important. Learning, interpreting, reassessing everything that is around us. Learn to think for ourselves.
Yeah.
Most of us listen to, the views of others, and the media right now is a really bunch of talking heads.
It's all propaganda on either side.
It's all propaganda on either side, and it's like in Trinidad you call it a bar discussion. It's like You know, you just take the bond, put it in, whether it's, you know, these news channels, just people discussing their ideas.
Yeah.
And they have an agenda, and they simply put that out there. And, you know, they make credible arguments. Both sides make credible arguments.
It's good to listen sometimes, you know, left
and both sides are making credible arguments. But what do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and are you getting the information from elsewhere? Coming back to that issue, the question of Benin and how that started. Again, it was a journey. I didn't see it coming, but I did my Ancestry.com, the DNA test, the Ancestry test.
Which one did you do?
Ancestry.com.
Ancestry, okay.
Yeah.
Because there's like three, four.
There's,
I want to do that too.
Yeah. And, you know, as I found out, you know, it was pretty accurate based on what I heard in Trinidad. And so, you know, Benin showed up like 33%.
Wow.
Benin. So I decided to go.
It must be excited to understand, like, there's somewhere, like there's an origin, there's a root.
Yeah, and that is important to understand that. You know, in Trinidad, as a black man or black person, they told us, look, forget Africa. You are Trinidadian. So someone asked you, what are you? I'm a Trinidadian. But then that's the nationality.
What does that mean?
I can always change nationality.
Exactly.
But I can't change.
Listen, I have 3 of them.
Right.
Like
You can change nationality as you know, whimsically. You know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went to Africa, and but I went for culture. It was cultural, and it was also spiritual. In Trinidad, I was very much involved in the Yoruba tradition. I got initiated in African traditions. But I was mindful that I don't want to replace how I was raised as a Roman Catholic, replacing one religion with another religion. Replacing one group of saints called with another group of saints with a different name, or gods or deities. I needed to go deeper than that. So when I went to Africa, it was cultural, but I was really pursuing animism. I was really pursuing shamanism. Something without experiences and forces without names, but forces that exist within me that I could explore, I can delve into. And that was the reason that I went. And I was lucky, and I have since been there. I've been there 3 times, and I have like 2 teachers who are very knowledgeable, and they were open. They were, they welcomed that I came from the diaspora, and they have taught me all that they know. They have, they made me a chief. I earned that title based on all that I've done, and I was given a renamed spiritual name.
What is your name?
All right. One teacher, Lisa Dano, and the other is Stefan.
Stefan.
Which means Ashte means blessing. And Fon, the ability, the renewal and blessing. There's an interesting story that I'll tell you afterwards. But so those were very powerful experiences, and I realized that regardless of how they try to snuff out the African in us in the Caribbean and tell us, look, you are Trinidadian. The drums spoke. The chanting spoke. There were things that you can't extricate, or you can't rip from someone's being.
You feel on a different level.
Yeah, it's a deep level.
Yeah.
And so when I went back, I really reconnected, and I also realized that a lot of our problems as Black people, and I will say it unreservedly, is an identity, that we have an identity issue, an identity problem, and that is as a result of hundreds of years of enslavement,
especially here, and I think everybody does have that, but even here, even more in Black people.
In Trinidad, in the Caribbean, I mean, a lot of Americans, I think, don't know that all of the Americas, Black people were enslaved.
And it was recently. That's the thing, is not much time has passed since the segregation.
So but blacks are, admittedly, the American blacks have gone through more in terms of, yes, there was enslavement, but even after enslavement, you had the period of Reconstruction, then you had Jim Crow, and then it keeps going on and on. I mean, this imbalance, it transcends slavery. It's beyond slavery. So in the Caribbean, we do have black politicians. And we have had always, not always, but we have had that for a while. We are independent for the most part, independent sovereign countries, and that adds it lends to someone's sense of belonging and empowerment, that you have a sovereign nation, and that your leaders are black. They may not advance the ideals that you might want, but the fact that they are black and they can speak to that to some extent is very important. So Africa, the trip in Africa was really eye-opening. It was empowering, and
can you tell me more about the initiation process? Or
well, there are parts I think I mentioned in the book. Yes, there's a divination process that you go through. It's a consultation, I'm sure, that will tell you a lot, or tell the reader, the diviner, a lot about the querents past, present, and future. Then, the initiation is initiation into the elements. So when you go to Benin, it's one of the most ecologically mindful place in the world, because the spirits, entities, energy are accommodated within the confines of the forest, of the water. The spirit, the forest itself is a spirit. The water itself is a spirit. So you don't desecrate, you don't just chop. Deforestation is unheard of in Benin. You have the respect or reverence for the tree. The tree speaks, the tree has consciousness. The water, I mean, we are 70%, of water we are made up.
Yeah.
And the water has a power in it. So you have water deities.
Frequency.
Yeah, there's a power.
Energy.
If you're doing spiritual work, it's important that you have water there as a magnet to facilitate that process. So, most of the initiation took place in the forest. My teacher said, one of the teachers said, look, I sleep inside the trees, and it's the most comfortable place,
Yeah.
And again, we are not looking at deities with a name. It is an energy with a stone as energy. There's a certain respect. You don't urinate on trees because it's like urinating on someone. So that degree of reverence is very important. Animism is so important because you will be the best environmentalist if you're an animist, the best ecologist if you're an animist. And you're connected to everything if you're an animist, and that's true love.
I'm not crazy when I see, let's say, a bug, and I'm trying not to kill it, and then there's when I do, I kind of in my head I say I'm sorry, or
definitely.
I feel like I have to do that. I don't know.
The Bible states that we are made dominion. I think we misinterpret that dominion over the everything, meaning that we can dominate. That's how we interpret that to mean. So we can chop trees down, we can kill animals for sport, and that is so wrong. And that is so wrong. So animism allows you to love in a deeper sense, in a selfless sense. Because most of us, when we speak of love, we confuse love with either lust or selfish love only for my family, my child, etc. True love is an energy. It's a very, very powerful force. It's a very powerful force. I'm not saying I'm there yet, but it's something that I aspire towards.
Have you experienced or heard or read about?
If I would add something, you allow me to add. And I have transferred that kind of energy, that philosophy, that value to my work as a therapist. So, as I work with my client, there's a degree of compassion. a degree of empathy that I think I might not have had if I had not gone through that process. So again, in coming back to the question of being master, jack of all trades, the issue here is everything is integrated.
You understand a little bit from different perspectives.
But everything is integrated.
Yeah.
So what you learn in the forest, the interconnectedness of the forest, the animism in the forest, that is what you take with you as you counsel a client.
I wish, I mentioned I work in the medical field with doctors, and I wish all the doctors or more doctors would have the same approach towards their patients.
Well, they can tell you, they have them listen to
I don't think.
I was kidding.
I actually have one doctor that I usually have conversations on a deeper level, and he also comes from Ghana. And he's a more, like, out of all the doctors that I have that I work with, he's the most diligent, or should I say responsible. He takes the time. He shows that he cares about the patient.
Right.
In the other cases, well, not saying everybody, not all the doctors are bad, but I see many times. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying not the ones where I work.
Well, of course.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It's just a number.
That's a job.
No, but it's also a number.
I mean,
the more patients, the more
of
money.
Of course.
It makes me uncomfortable working there. Willing to not be a part of it.
Right.
To do
Yes.
go astray and do your own thing, because it shouldn't be like that.
Of course not.
But back to what you were saying, nature and animism.
Yeah.
So everything has a soul. I felt, I miss to this day. That's why I like going back to Moldova for a whole month. I hope to have some of that experience back. When I was growing as a child in my grandma's village, it was the best time, because we didn't have phones. Or later, when I was growing, we had phones. I would walk out the house in the morning and come back at night. We'd experience each other as kids, and we always experienced the nature. A tree, a stone. We'd come up with all these interesting ways of playing with everything that was given to us, and the smell, the touch, everything, all of it is just. I remember we'd come too late home because we would just lay down on the grass and we'd look into the stars, nothing else, and we would talk or not talk at all. That's it. It was an amazing time. Maybe because I'm just reminiscing of childhood.
No, well, look, honestly, as a therapist, the childhood experience is the closest experience to God.
Right, it's purest.
It's the purest. That's why, again, I refer to the Bible. It says, the little child shall lead them, and suffer me unto
learn
the
from
children.
the child.
Both references to the importance of the child. And that's why in therapy there's something called doing inner child work, where you heal the wounded child.
That's what I was, you mentioned that in your book as well.
In fact, there is a ritual that I had undergone, spiritual ritual, and after the 7 days of that ritual, the top of my head, the Sahasrara chakra, was the skull, came malleable, so soft.
Soft, really?
And I was in my 20s.
Really?
Soft, and the priestess said, cover, make sure you cover your head and don't allow anyone to touch your head, no one. And again, I thought of kids who have imaginary friends, and why do they have imaginary friends? You talk about reincarnation, and they are closest to their last incarnation, and they are still connected to that incarnation and those that they have left behind, and they can still communicate. So when I had undergone that ritual, the top became very soft. Eventually, when I started indulging in other material things, of course, the skull, this hardness came back, etc. So that's very interesting. And that's why you speak into a child's, top of a child's head as a parent. So you impart wisdom and knowledge. It's very powerful. So that's why this is a crown chakra, the very top, the soft, the child, the innocence.
Okay.
And in my practice, I devised a system called, the child, the child therapy, where I induce the hypnotic state, and the individual goes back when he or she was 4 or 5. They call the pre-Oedipal or Oedipal complex period, and there's always a time in a child's life, regardless of if they're rich or poor, regardless of if they were bullied, regardless of what, but there's a part, a time, a period, a moment where they experience oneness, when in their own individuality, in their own solitude, they can play and experience the gift of life. And that is a part that we have to recapture.
I'm getting emotional as we speak about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And that is a part we have to recapture, that child in us. And that is buried because we have to pursue our jobs, we have to do this, we are married, we have responsibilities.
Yeah.
We have to compete with everyone else, we have bills to pay. And that little child is buried.
Yeah.
So in the work I do, I try to, dig deep, and like a shovel, and all the sand, and until I get that child again. And you'll be surprised, when the individuals, when the clients experience it again, it's magical.
Yeah.
And that's why you need to go back to Moldova to recapture it.
Definitely.
To recapture that, because the soul is calling for that.
Yeah. We got into a very delicate topic, my trip to Moldova, and it's more than just just seeing my parents. It's
of course. It's a reconnection.
Yeah.
It's a reconnection. And we all need to reconnect for life.
Yeah.
For sustenance, for spiritual nourishment. We all need that. I remember my brother who passed like 4 years ago, he wanted, he was so sick that he was unable to travel. But he really wanted to return to be home to his country. He gave a note to his wife, and he wrote a letter. The note was a letter that she took that note, returned to Trinidad with that note, and it was he addressed it to our parents. So she went to the cemetery.
Wow.
And she delivered the note. And I don't know the details, but I know it's centered on an aspect of his childhood. That is the most important part.
Yeah, I have a guilt. I have towards my grandma. She passed away while I was here, and I was unable to go back. So the last time I saw her was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And she was the one that spent all this time with me, and taught me how to write, taught me how to read, and all these.
Wow. So that's, well, there are ways in which you can address that. I like to...
She even taught me English without knowing any English.
Oh, really?
We would... that's how far she would go, to work with me. There was a book, and with vocabulary in the back, with words. Mm-hmm. She would talk to the teacher, she would write them, how to pronounce them with the Russian letters, Cyrillic,
Yeah.
And she would make me learn all the words, 10 words, new words a day.
Wow.
And then at the end of the day, she would test me on that. The pronunciation, she was, okay, good, and then...
Wow.
Okay, and she didn't know any English.
Fascinating.
Yeah. That's just how great she was.
Well, you can still connect to her.
Yeah.
You can.
You think?
Of course.
That's spirits and stuff.
No.
Or like later.
No. It's not in the sense of spiritualism or spiritism. No, But you know, we call it soul fragments. What she represents to you is cannot die. It's always with you.
Yeah.
And she's a representation of knowledge, of nurturing, of understanding, of compassion. Those things are always with you, and it's important that you know that you have a picture of her.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I do. I have a place, a workplace. I have a picture of my mom and my dad, and I commune. And you know that space, that sacred space, is where you can talk to her, where you can write a letter to her. You know, and eventually you find that, you know, what she represents is so much part of you that there's no need for guilt, because you're actually fulfilling, you know, what she wanted you to fulfill. And that is important. But I think that having a workspace, having a picture, talking, writing letters, that's a good way of addressing, you know, guilt and other kind of destructive emotional states, you know.
I want to share a couple more personal things related to this. When my wife was pregnant and she was ready to give birth, we went to the hospital, and it was actually on my grandma's birthday that we went to the hospital, and they said, well, you're dilated, or whatever they call it, and you could, if you wanted to, you can give birth today. But we said, well, no, she feels fine, so we'll come back, right, you know, back when it's, and we came back 6 days later, and she gave birth. And that was a year or 6 months after my grandma passed. So it's and I have a daughter, so it's like, you know, talking about reincarnation and all these things. I don't know how that works, but my mom likes to believe all these things. Yeah. But it's very weird how this works. And then the other one, when my grandpa passed away a long time ago, my uncle, he was a very sweet soul, very, very kind person. He was very young also when he passed away, and after right away, the same night we found out that he passed away, and in the house, and that's talking about, you know the butterflies, what they say is that if you see a butterfly, it's the soul of the one that passed. Yeah. I'm consoling my mom. She was with us actually at the time, and my wife was like, look. I'm like, what? And there was a butterfly in the house. I'm like, what are you talking? Like, where's this coming from? After that, I go to work. I again talk to my favorite doctor about spirits, and he's a very much believer in spirits, and although he's a doctor, you know. Of course. And we talk in the hallway, and through the main door of the office, and I mentioned him, my uncle, flies in a butterfly.
Oh, really?
Third time, this happens in a matter of a week or two. My wife and I and my daughter are going to do the passports in order to travel to go to Moldova. We stay in line before we walk into the door. Right. There's another butterfly. I say, this is just the season of butterflies and everything. That's it, 3 times. This is the craziest one. It took us, we got into the plane. That was a different story, how we got, it was late once, twice, 3 times. It took us 3 days to get to Moldova. But anyway, final plane from Germany to Moldova, to Chisinau. We sit in the chairs. I'm not kidding, and I'm very, very doubtful person. Skeptic, yes. Rarely I give my daughter a phone, but this time I give it to her. She scrolls through the pictures, and she saw a picture of my uncle. She stops and looks at it for a minute, and then I see right in front of, like on my seat, now nowhere near, not that my seat, there's a butterfly right in front of me. Wow. I kid you not, I took a picture and I showed everybody at home. I showed everybody here. Every time I say this story, it's like it's just a reminder to myself. A picture is just an evidence.
Wow.
Because the later in life you go, I would probably think, oh, it's probably my imagination. It was, no, I took a picture.
Wow.
It happened.
Yeah.
It's very, very weird.
In fact, I just read a book on all the questions you need to know about the afterlife, and it did mention that the departed use animals and insects, and also to make their presence felt. Believe it or not.
Wow.
I just read that book. Just did the book review.
What's it called?
It's called. The review will be published. My review will be published on this Sunday. So I'll send you the link.
Sounds good.
Yeah. But it's very interesting as that you're talking.
It's very.
Yeah. So
there's also a movie with Kevin Costner, I think, when his wife passes away, and he's also looking for a butterfly or something somewhere. Very.
So there's a continuance of life. Life is never. There's no abrupt ending or cessation, but there's a continuous, a transition.
So, speaking of life, are you afraid of death? No.
I think most of us are.
Yeah.
I think a lot of you call it eschatology, all the afterlife theories, about heaven, hell, and what's going to happen, about salvation, about even the rapture. A lot of people don't want to die. A lot of us don't want to die, and we like thinking that the rapture will come and all the evil people will stay here, but we'll be raptured up into the heavens. That's a kind of like the fear of death. All these things came out of
fear of death.
And and rightly so. Religion has painted at times a horrific picture of the afterlife. Islam talks of the earth, or when you're when you are interred, that the coffin, the cracking of bones, and you're questioned in the grave. The question in the grave of from two angels who will question you about what you did in life. I mean, look, when a child listens to that kind of doctrine, or even the doctrine of the hellfire, it creates anxiety, it creates fear, and that is realized especially at the hour of death, because you don't know exactly. You look back on your life and you say, I really did some horrible things. What's going to happen to me? So it's very destructive. Am I afraid of dying? No, I'm not. Do I prefer a particular way to die? Do I want to die suddenly, or do I want to be, like my mother, know that I'm dying and then actually leave? I'd much prefer that, possibly. But I have shed these beliefs of hell. I've shed the belief of gnashing of teeth and hellfire. I've shed all those destructive beliefs. And it takes time.
Yeah, of course.
Fear is with us all the time. All the time. From as you open your eyes, there's fear. Your parents is the good and bad object.
Yeah.
Your parents is good, but your parents could also be bad if they don't give you milk. All right, that's you go to school. There's a principal, there's the authority.
Yeah. The sort of survival instinct.
So everything is based. Life itself is based as a fear-based society. Very subtle. It may not be fear of being robbed or killed, but everything is based fear of losing your job, fear of not getting promoted, fear of not falling in line at the workplace,
not being accepted,
and be accepted. So fear, we are born with it, and religion just compounds
even
it
more.
now. So this takes fear to another level, now the afterlife.
Right. Justifying everything.
Yes. Yeah. So religion has its worth. It's worthy. I'm not what I am today. I could not have been without my mother and her faith, and that's how I learn about faith.
It's a very powerful
it's
thing.
Very, very powerful.
Yeah.
I could attest to that. I could also attest to the importance of parental blessings. And the responsibility of the child to the parent. And it's important. A lot of our problems today is lack of authority and lack of reverence for our parents. And that is missing in our society. Your parent is not your friend. Your parent is loving, but it's not your friend. Your parent is not your friend.
You think it's not the case? This is not the right way. If the parent doesn't, being a friend is a bad thing.
Well, I mean, it's how you interpret friend. It's how you interpret friend. I mean, having the key here is that the respect. Yeah. Your child must have respect for.
As for a teacher or a mentor,
that is vital. Yeah. And there's a lot to be said about honoring your mother and your father, for thy days will be long. There's one teaching that if your mother blesses you, is a blessing of God. Yeah. I mean, in essence, the mother is, your parents are your only creators, the creators that you know. Other creators, what you believe in.
Exactly. Yeah.
But your mother is closest thing you can ever get to God.
That's I can relate to this because I have conflicts now with my mom. We love each other, but because this problem, like you said, and you mentioned this in your on your website as well. I read about the role of your father and your mother. My mom was my mother, but also a friend to me because she was young. Well, she was 21 when she had me. But I went through her problems with her as a kid. Okay. So I saw a lot of things, right. And I understood. And she spoke with me all. Like that's why maybe my perspective, my deeper understanding of things came from. But now, when she demands of me, the respect of as to a mother, when I can be critical and very blunt with her, she's like, "What you shouldn't be doing this." I'm like, "Well, too late for that. You're my also, do you want to be a friend or you want to be my mother? If you want to be my mother, then I'll be the best son ever. I'll agree with everything you say." Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, it depends on how you define friend. But okay, you can be friends with her, but ultimately,
no. But I understand
respect is so important. And And once she blesses you, you have the blessings of God. You don't need any other blessing or benediction in your life. If your mom, and it's very powerful, words are powerful. In the beginning was the word. Yeah. The word, the utterance is so powerful. That's where magic comes in. Where malediciones or curses or blessings come in, the power of the word. I can make a suggestion to a child that could actually elevate that child or bring that or lower that child's esteem and destroy that child just by a word. All right, if the child ingests and takes it in.
There's different kids.
Right. But the blessing of your mother is so important. I can't reiterate that. I can't emphasize that, overemphasize that. And again, if you don't have that blessing, or if your mother despises you or curses you for your disrespect, I don't care if you have $1 million, you will always have problems. If you have $1 billion, you will never see
this is so
light in your life. And if you have zero sum, but your mother blesses you before she dies, or even if she's living, you'll always find a way in life.
Everything you say, it relates to my life. My dad, we're separated from his side of family. Again, because his mother did not bless him. His mother does not talk to him, or he doesn't. So it's a very rough road, very, very rough.
And especially if if your parents refuse, or because of your disrespect or something that you have done, and they turn away from you. It's a tough road ahead. It will be a tough road ahead for you. So these are the principles that are missing from our society. This is kind of knowledge that we all should know.
These are important things.
Yeah, and it's not getting a doctoral degree because that is going to make you a richer person or a much more respected person in life. If you don't have the fundamental thing of love from your parents, you don't have anything.
Yeah,
You don't have anything.
I agree.
You know, so this is what we have to do as a society. These are the things we need to teach each other. Not only our kids, we need to talk to each other, because I can talk to someone in their 20s and they can mend the relationship they have with their parents by saying, by just my counsel in that respect. You know, so these are the kinds of information that we need to get out there.
Yeah.
You know, of course, you have situations where one might say, "Okay, my parents were abusive. What do I do?" You know, but we could address those things. But it doesn't mean you have to turn your back. It doesn't mean you have to hate. Neither does it mean you have to disrespect them. You can turn away because they were abusive, and nature will address that. But it doesn't mean that you have to now, be vengeful and get back.
Right. Again, the extreme. From one extreme to the other. You're somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this pandemic has, given me the opportunity to stay home and spend more time with my daughter, and it just reaffirmed my conclusions and my thoughts before that. I definitely want to, like my wife right now, she's staying home with her. We want to give her to the kindergarten as late as possible.
Yes.
It's important to have that connection with them.
Formative years, yeah.
Yes, and then us being around her and experience things and teach her and to have that connection. Because then after, like they say, after 3 or 4, then it's a different period in their time. They can be let, outside to the real world. I'm glad. So if there is a silver lining, that's to this pandemic, then
right. Yes.
Staying home and spending time and understanding. And I want to, from now on, even work, if it's a job or if it's a business or whatever experience. I want to work around the schedule, around the family.
And so much can be said about the two-parent home, the nuclear family as they call it. In some situations, you have a single-parent home and they can't help that. But it's always
very
sound
tough.
to the two-parent home is very sound, because you are offering something different to what your wife is offering. You have the masculine energy, you have the feminine energy. Not only in terms of what you are inculcating on a material level, but a spiritual level. The energy is different.
I totally agree.
The energy is different, and they have to get that balance of both feminine and masculine input. We can't glorify or separate. Even if you are divorced, it's important that the child has both parents influenced on nurturing. Again, that balance, that yin and yang.
Story of everything. Everything is the dualism.
And that doesn't, of course, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with a child that is reared by a single parent. It doesn't mean
it's just a little harder. It's a little
harder,
different.
I think we like to look at things in a very superficial way, but deep within, I feel that the child needs both.
And that goes also back to your book, when you say, when they would take slaves from Africa, they would dehumanize or they would lynch the fathers, they would castrate the fathers.
Castration of the castration
in front of the kids, in front of the wives.
And
the stuff they do in jail,
right, and the lack of
the father figure.
Fatherhood, the fatherhood has been kind of destroyed in the black family. Again, when I say that we have to look inward, this all well and good to protest police brutality. That's just part of a huge iceberg.
It's just a result of
the tip of a huge, humongous iceberg. But you have fatherless homes, and then you have X amount of high proportion of black fathers who are in jail. So you have to get to the core of that.
Or even the ones that are not in jail, that are fathers of many kids, and they don't have that culture of taking care of them, be responsible.
The responsibility. I mean, I understand and I get it. I get how the past tells us a lot about who we are today. But there are certain things that we can see through reason that that I feel that we're going to try to address. And you know, there's something endemically wrong, innately wrong with when you have the proliferation of fatherlessness in black homes.
Yeah.
There's something innately wrong, and it's cancerous, and that has to be addressed.
Insecurities.
And then I feel that, you know, through reason, I think we have individual responsibility at the same time. I mean, we can address identity issues, we can address, you know, social ills, but then we can say, look, I have a child, I have a daughter. And that in itself, that is a seminal moment in someone's life to have a child.
Yeah.
And one can say, you know what, I need to take care, I need to get my act together.
It's awakening call, yeah.
It's a awakening call.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, you know, that a birth should give us pause.
Yeah.
For us to say, look, let me turn this around, let me address this,
Yeah.
let me be there. You know, even if I don't want to get married, but at least let me be there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So responsibility, individual responsibility, very, very important.
Yeah. I was just thinking, you know, you mentioned the past, you know, the past of the black people in this country. It wasn't like the when with the slavery, it wasn't a chosen past, you know. So that's what it was, a forced upon past. That's why it's very important. Now I understand is how to go even farther, to go back to, you know, to the roots.
Yeah, the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
So to speak. Yeah.
To understand the culture even before slavery, how, you know, where you come from, and then during that, and then so educating people on not just Black Month history,
right?
Black History Month.
Yeah, Black History Month. You know, that is, you know, we keep.
This is very superficial. Like it's.
I mean, it's good, but it doesn't go far enough. I mean, you know, we have the same names popping up over and over and over again.
Yeah. Posted on Instagram.
And it goes in here and comes out there, and as reflected in, you know, what we see in black communities. So obviously, you know, you have Martin Luther King Street, and then you have, you know, riots and the destruction of black businesses.
Yeah.
So
it's
those are the hard
contradicting
hard realities
yeah.
that we have to face. You know.
Another thing I wanted to ask you is. It's become very popular in recent years, and on many podcasts. And one of my favorite ones, you know, Joe Rogan. I don't know if you Joe Rogan.
Yes.
Ayahuasca, DMT, all these mushrooms.
Yes.
You know, consuming.
Right.
Have you ever experienced that, or what do you think about all this? The trend,
right.
Or maybe the.
Well, look.
The search of the truth.
Well, two things. It reminds me of in the '60s where people were taking, you know, hallucinogenics to experience something more. It does tell us two things. Number one, that there is a need for individuals to delve deeper into who they are, to find answers that religion isn't giving them. So that's one. So there's just need to know more. There's a need to heal. Then you have the other aspect of that is when there's a need, there's a supply. And then you look at the suppliers, and then you want to find out how authentic they are. So you have people capitalizing on this need.
Mostly not.
All right.
Yeah.
So you know, so we have. This has become like an industry, part of a tourist industry. People go to Latin America to experience this.
Yeah.
The source, you have to look at the source. Who are these people who are giving you these hallucinogens? Mm-hmm. How credible they are? It is a money-making business for them. Number three, not everyone is different. Not every constitution is the same, mental constitution. So you take a portion, I take a portion, I'll have a different reaction based on many different factors. If you're worth your salt as a Qigong instructor or a yoga instructor, you don't accept someone who's suffering necessarily immediately. You'll have need permission from the person's doctor. If the person is suffering from schizophrenia, or the person has major psychological problems. In Qigong, at least, that's a no-no. You don't do that. Why? Because you can unearth a host of issues, a host of conflicting, biting issues that can make the experience a lot more torturous. Not more torturous, but then make the experience torturous. When you go to those countries, you can go there with a lot of pain, a lot of imbalance, a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety in your life, and then you take it, and then a lot of stuff happens. And I'm not saying that I know that this has happened. I mean, you can read about it.
No, I've heard.
Okay, yes. So I think that it's you have to do your due diligence, but I also believe that there are ways in which you can access and have these same experiences, these inner world experiences as they call it, ways in which you can have catharsis and you can cry and you can release pain and grief. There are ways you can do it without compromising your safety. Holotropic breathing is one method.
I was just going to mention that, yes. I've heard of
breath
that.
work is another method.
My wife mentions
related.
that too, yes.
Okay, it's related. I had undergone that several times. I know one of the instructors here in New York, and they call them a facilitator, not an instructor. And shamanic drumming is played, and the person
music.
Music. And music can get you the Sufi dances, the Sifu, the dervish dancers in Sufism can get you there. African drumming can get you there. Ecstatic states.
Meditation.
Osho, one of the, he's dead now. He got his followers in that state. But I think it's very dangerous if done unsupervised and done by, performed by someone who is looking for the money. And there's so many out there. I am very suspect of people who are in this field. Very
people are responsible in every field.
And did you do a diagnosis? Did you request a letter from them? Do you know their psychological profile? Do you know their problems that they're suffering? No, you pay your money, and then you're in this group and you ingest. So there are ways in which you can experience. But I think what it highlights is the shortcomings of religion, the shortcomings of mosques and temples and churches, and the shortcomings of orthodox religions, of exoteric religions. People are waking up. I mean, social media has given individuals a lot of information, food out there to select from. And some resonate, and others don't, and you can cherry pick what you want. But it comes down to the need for us to go deeper, to find out, to relieve pain. And we always want this quick fix. So we think that once we head to, South America, you take this and automatically we'll feel better, or we'll see things, and we'll experience God, and suddenly all our pain is gone. It doesn't happen like that.
I'm sure there's a lot of people like that.
No, some people have had good experiences.
But there are a lot of people that actually do it, and they also mention that they have, like you said, you have to be prepared. But what does that mean?
What does it mean?
How can you be prepared? Be in a good physical condition, can you be mental good condition? But then, why would you need that if you're good in mental? But they go for an eye-opening experience, for something to change your perspective in life. Again, I'm sure a lot of people understand animism more after those experiences,
Right.
So they understand the interconnection, the links between each other.
Correct. Yes.
But not everybody. I mean, I'm sure.
Right. Again, I did say that, of course, many people have had positive experiences. I'm sure.
So you haven't? You have?
No,
never
I haven't done that.
Okay.
I didn't see
the need.
I don't see the need for it. I've experienced it without that, and I think it's safe. And I think
When you say you've experienced that, what exactly do you mean?
Well, other worlds, inner worlds, other languages, cryptic languages that I was able to read without knowing the language at all, and you don't see that language around. It's very old and it's ancient, doesn't exist.
Wow.
But in that realm, in a telepathic realm, you just know. It's not how we read now and interpret. It's just absorption of knowledge that you just know. You can just So yes, the ability to, as I'm talking to you, function on multiple levels. So you can address a being not right next to you, and I can still talk to you at the same time. So you're operating on two levels. So yes, I didn't need a potion.
Are you saying there's a being right here?
No, I'm not saying. It was interesting.
I don't know.
It was interesting, and there's something called also. A lot of people, I'm sure, you go to mental institutions, and in transpersonal psychology is now addressing that, or has addressed mental, what they call psychological disorders and spiritual, having a spiritual connection, so that some what we call mental illness here at times could be related to some kind of spiritual some spiritual reason for it happening. There's a definition. It's called there's a term called spiritual emergencies, or spiritual crisis. That means that there's a break in the psyche. There's a dissolution of the psyche, a break in reality, and you're able to see and hear and feel and smell things of another realm. Now, if you don't know what that is, you will say it's a breakdown. And your parents are going to whisk you to the mental institution.
Get some pills.
And they get the pills or injections, etc. Others now in transpersonal psychiatry or psychology have stated it's a breakthrough, not a breakdown, but a breakthrough.
Yeah.
So, it all depends on the individual, what they were doing prior to this breakthrough or breakdown. Were they taking drugs? Or were they meditating extensively? Were they practicing yoga too much? Were they fasting? And that's where a spiritual crisis usually happens. St. John calls it the dark night of the soul, the crisis state. But it's misconstrued as a psychological disorder when it's a spiritual crisis. So how do you address, how do you know if it's a spiritual disorder, or how do you know if it's a spiritual crisis? And if it's a spiritual crisis, how do you address it? You can compound the situation by taking medication. You can address it through art therapy, through music, through grounding exercises. If you were meditating a lot and that's a breakthrough or crisis, you stop meditation immediately. You begin eating heavy foods, what you call like rajasic foods, like meat, solid stuff. So you ground yourself. You start socializing more, being among people. You don't isolate yourself. These are the fundamental things that you take immediately.
Interesting.
You hold on to like wood, like a tree, etc., to ground yourself.
They said that if you hug a tree for 3 minutes, 5 minutes a day, every day, it will definitely change your life in a better way.
Exactly. And then there are other grounding exercises that you do. But the bottom line is, number one, and you have to know how to channel this energy, this crisis, into something that's productive. So if you're an artist, that's why a lot of artists in particular, like yourself, like myself, will experience these ecstatic states. But what do? Could you channel it through art therapy? Could you channel it through writing? through oral, through storytelling. There are ways in which those things can be addressed. But again, if you have had a history of mental illness in your family, you might need medication. So it all depends.
It's all interconnected. Yes.
Yes,
Of course.
it all depends on your diagnosis.
And it's not one-dimensional. It's
Exactly.
different aspects to the
Right,
reality.
but it can be safely done. I've been able to do it in a safe way, without fear.
Through breathing.
Sorry.
Through breathing.
Through breathing, through fasting,
Fasting.
and through a preoccupation with the divine. Through preoccupation with the divine. You know, and it takes time, and you know, but it happens in a safe. It can happen in a very safe way, in a safe environment. If it comes upon you very suddenly, then you know you can freak out. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So, in time, everything in time, it's unfoldment.
This thought crossed my mind many years ago, and I was saying that we are so focused on developing our technologies, our what's it called? Technologies, basically, that we forget about our souls. And again, I guess this is a cycle of our human society at this point, maybe.
Right.
Then it'll be a turning point, and then we'll go back to spirituality, because there were people before us that were giving more,
Exactly.
emphasize more on that rather than technology.
Right.
So
Right.
I guess it's just the period of time right now.
Yes.
We're not so much in, like this. Elon Musk right now, he's about he is in the middle of developing the Neuralink. Have you heard of that?
No, but I know of
Neuralink. They will put chips basically in your head, an extension to, and you will be connected to the grid, to whatever, to the internet, and basically people won't have to talk to each other because we're going to be so developed, they understand each other so well, and then. But then is that really like this is an outside technology coming into instead of from the outside? Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So it's the opposite.
It's still missing the point. There's still emptiness out in there.
Yeah. So I don't know what the true intention of that is, or the final mission of that is.
Right.
We'll find out.
Right, of course. What's interesting though?
It's
very interesting. Yeah.
Let's present the book.
That's your book.
Conflict of Identity. Thank you very much. I've read it online.
Yeah.
Like you gave me the online version.
Yes.
Conflict of Identity. Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. And I'll put a link to everything, all the information.
I went to the school there. It was very awesome.
It's a very good book. I read it before it was even out.
Yeah.
So that's the privilege I had.
Right.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun, and I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
To a great extent, and thank you so much again.
Thank you.
For sharing your time.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll see.
Any other question?
No, I think we'll keep it for the next time. I'm sure if you'd like to, I would love to.
Right.
We'll meet again, and we'll
then maybe you want to do something on actual spiritual exercises.
Absolutely. I'll ask you more about it too.
Yeah. You want to go into in depth.
Yeah. Stop everything.
Yeah. It was good. Thank you.
Thank you.